Dayton City Council meeting. Roll call, please. Ms. Bainey?
Mayor Baker,
Here.
Member Vulture,
Here.
what do?
Are we alive yet?
Member Neary,
Here.
Member Neiman,
Here.
Member Kelly.
Here.
Member Lovins,
Here.
Member Wyrick. Fawcett, City Administrator
Here.
Fawcett. City Attorney Edmonds. Okay.
All right, if we could all now please rise for a moment of silence, and then we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, and I believe Member Wyrick is here as well. Say the word here.
Here.
He's here.
Great, I'm marking here.
Before we start this evening's procedures, I'd like to introduce everybody to Jerry Huntley. Jerry is working with Avant, and he's been working on a very important issue of ours, of audio quality for streaming and production, to make sure that all citizens can hear everything better, however they choose to watch our meetings. So Mr. Huntley is going to give council and staff a quick overview of how to use this equipment and make sure that everybody can hear us. Mr. Huntley, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, real quick. Thank you for letting me have 3 or 4 minutes here to give them some education. That's going to make everybody much happier in the long run if you're sitting outside the room. So I'm going to walk up to you guys, show you some do's and don'ts when we're using the new sound system. I think they did a little rough taping the other night of some of the systems, and some vocals were dropping out, and I can explain why. We've went back and set a couple levels, but you have 2 choices of how this system can be operated. One is going to be auto gating. Number 2 is going to be push to talk, push on, push off. We are trying to stay away from that for your convenience, because in the past, a lot of people never turned their mic on at the appropriate time, never turned it off at the appropriate time. So we're trying to do it automatically. That said, there are rules you have to play. Number 1.
Guilty.
She's the one I got to
Guilty.
worry about. No.
Go for it.
Your microphones are hot all the time. When you talk, please speak directly into the microphone so that the gate or the gate, if you don't go above that gate, do not turn the channel on. If you go below that gate, you turn the channel off automatically. If you talk, please say something. Good evening or whatever. Okay? You didn't hit the gate.
Sweet. That's what
So-
I needed to know.
One of 2 things. You either need to get closer or talk loud.
Hello. Is that better?
Perfect. But those are the kind of things that we just want everybody to know. I am going to be making some changes. Here's what they will be preset. But I'd like to real quick, everybody would just go around the room and say their name. I want to make sure your mic is being activated at the present time. On to go.
Jeff Volter. Joe.
Beth Neiman.
Jay Fawcett.
Ben Baker.
Christina Kelly.
Bessie.
Okay. Jesse, you're the only one that's a little weak, and I got you. Now, that said, if you don't want to be heard, there is a mute on your microphone that you can turn it off. That is the green button. When it is green, it is hot. When it is here's a set where it can do touch off. Okay? Let's do one more setting on yours, Jessica, and we're good.
Breaker break.
Is
that better?
Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huntley. Appreciate our citizens helping us.
Jerry, just one more question. Can Jared hear if
it's not audible on the internet?
Yes, he has headphones.
He can tell.
If he plugs headphones into the VR one, he can hear exactly what's being streamed out.
Okay, thank you.
I will say last night we did a code enforcement board meeting and some people were not speaking into the microphone or they were speaking like, it wasn't picking up. So make sure, and also audience members cannot speak from their seats. They must be at the microphone or they're not going to be heard.
That's correct. If you're presenting tonight, you do need to come to the microphone or you will not be on TV and not a portion of the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huntley. Appreciate you. First on the agenda would be the mayor's report. Today, I don't know if you guys saw it or not on the media, but Cincinnati Business Courier Journal, which is a big publication, noticed that we have 2 new businesses that are announcing in Cincinnati or in Dayton that they'll be coming to Dayton. First would be Roving Points Book Company. So they do a lot of locally authored and published books, as well as more wide-reaching books, as well as coffee. So they'll be located over on Vine Street, 6th and Vine, right across from the lodge. And we are extremely excited to have them, along with their co-partners, Lil's Bagels. Lil's has moved from Covington into Dayton. It's kind of how that was kind of my track too. I understand why they want to do that, and we're super happy to have them in Dayton, Kentucky. So we'd like to welcome them to our city. Second on my mayor's report would be, I want to talk about where we are today. We've come a long way in the last couple of years here in the city of Dayton. We're sitting in a room right now that at one time was unavailable to the city. We were couch surfing over at the Board of Education's place, and they were kind enough to give us that space. But now we have this really nice room, these really nice tables, and a very nice audio system, and we're progressing. We have a lot of different things going on around the city that are gaining interest, and a lot of this goes to our friend Jay Fawcett. Today's our 2-year anniversary of hiring Jay, and we wouldn't be here without him. When he first came, the first thing was I was at a luncheon and a person, I won't name him by name because I don't want to call him out, said, "Hey, I saw you're smart enough to hire Jay Fawcett temporarily," because he was our temporary city administrator. And I was like, "Yeah, that was a pretty good move, wasn't it?" He's like, "Yeah, that was pretty smart." He's like, "But you ain't smart enough to keep him." Here we are 2 years later, and we've made huge bounds. He came to me and said the first thing that he wanted to do was go after blighted properties, and I thought that was silly. I was going on different things, but he was right. Now we have a top 10 list that turned into a top 30 list. We have some of the biggest blighted properties in our city are now flipped. They are now important pieces of our city, and that's all because of this guy. So,
Well, we got a full
well,
team,
Cassie too.
including Cassie.
Because he told me how important that was, and I didn't believe it at first because I had my own mind, but he was smarter than I was, and that's why you hire smart people and you listen to what they say and get out of their way. And I hope that's what I do for Jay. And I really want to say that how much the city is indebted to you, and we appreciate you.
I appreciate being here. Thank you.
That is my mayor's report for the evening. Next up on the agenda will be the minutes approval for February 7th, 2023, the city council meeting. Do you have a motion to accept? Is that no?
Move to accept with a correction.
I'm listening. Please.
So, well, coming out of executive session, I'm not sure who, either Joe or Beth made it, and one of them seconded it, but it's got Joe down for both. So,
Oh, can you do that?
I think she just couldn't read my writing. It was Joe made the motion and Beth, I think you seconded the motion
Okay.
to come out of executive session. So I think she just saw N in my scratch and thought it was Neary, but
So
it was Neary.
just with that correction,
Yeah.
make a motion to approve minutes.
Member Volters made the motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
With the correction, member Neary is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions?
Same.
Abstained by member Kelly. Next on the agenda, now this is for tonight's agenda. If you have anything that you want to speak to council about or administration about that's coming up on tonight's agenda, there's a couple resolutions and ordinances. You are more than welcome to address the city at the podium. Just state your name and your address, please.
You need my home address? Okay.
That's the way it works.
I don't know which one to pick. So I'm Nathan Kreger. I'm chair of the Main Street Advisory Board here in Dayton. I live at 313 Van Vost, but we also own a lot of properties, and we'll be opening a business hopefully really soon over in the old Tower Methodist Church, which we're finishing up renovations at. I just wanted to come and talk about at our last meeting, we voted to recommend and support the Rope Walk Entertainment District ordinance that you guys are doing tonight. So I just wanted to say we're for it. Go for it. Thanks.
Thank you, Nathan. Podium's available for anybody.
Hello.
We all know
Becky
you.
Mays, lifelong citizen of this town, Dayton, Kentucky. I'm not much of a speaker, but I am talking about the rope liquor drinking on the avenue, the ordinance that you all want to pass. I don't think it's necessary for the city of Dayton for people to be walking up and down the avenue drinking their alcohol. You got 4 blocks to 100, 200, 300, 400, very valuable homes. I'm sure those people don't want people in front of their homes drinking alcohol. I don't want it. I'm in the 500 block. I don't like being woke up in the middle of the night because someone's loud and getting louder because of the drinking that we got to put up with. If you legalize it, police are not going to come and do anything about it. So we're going to have to put up with it. I remember when I put the manger set up on the avenue, we had some music in there. You asked me to keep it down, turn it down at a certain time, because the little girl next door has got to sleep. Well, what about us? What about the residents of this town? Don't we get any respect? This is to broaden your expansion on your alcohol. We're good for you. But you also ban cigarettes because they cause cancer. Well, alcohol causes cancer too. Whether you want to go for it or not, it does. But we're going to get on the bandwagon and we're going to block smoking, but we're going to encourage drinking. It's the worst thing we could be doing to the city. I myself think this is no good for the city of Dayton. I've lived here all my life. Drinking, causes a lot of problems. There's a lot of family issues. It's going to be a lot of domestics. A lot of domestics are caused by alcohol. We got a lot of domestic problems in the city. I'm sure the police ain't going to want to run around and tell the people, be quiet, don't disturb the neighbors. They're not going to do it. They got enough on their hands. I'm asking no on the drinking on the avenue. The pub crawls, the bars got their pub crawls. They make good money off it. It's well organized. They got transportation. They make it back and forth to the places. We don't need just anybody and a welcome mat from Bellevue to Dayton. Why are we welcoming them anyway? What do they do it for us? Constantly. Well, we got to do what Bellevue's doing. We're doing what's Bellevue. Why don't you go work for Bellevue? I thought you're getting paid by Dayton and start doing stuff for Dayton. This is mainly for Bellevue.
Thank you, Ms. Mays. Podium is still open for anyone who'd like to address.
I'm Barry Baker. I live at 404 8th Avenue, Dayton, and I'm for it. I see the benefit that the businesses in the city of Dayton can reap out of this. I know there's more to talk about the detail on the size of the district and what can be used in that district. So if you could maybe speak a little bit more about the detail of this district so we get a better understanding of it.
I'd be happy to. Do you have a list of it?
So you want me to,
But the size, so you're asking, Mr. Baker, it goes from 6th and O'Fallon to Main Street.
Okay, but you also have a control over that district also. It can be either 4 blocks long or 6 blocks long, correct? I mean,
the district runs from the border with Bellevue all the way to Main Street.
okay, that would be the effective district, correct?
Yes, on both sides of
But
the.
can't we limit it also in that district? Like, I don't know, maybe the first 4 blocks starting east, say this will work, but still keep the rest of the district open? You know,
You can,
my-
the city council can decide any area it wants to designate. I think the idea was, though, that patrons from Bellevue might want to come into Dayton if they had the ability to walk from Dayton, from
Yeah.
Bellevue into the Dayton Entertainment District. So that was, I think, the reasoning behind why they wanted a continuous
Yeah.
district.
Yeah, I kind of understand that part of, but I understand where Becky's coming from also, you know.
Right.
But there's not that many restaurants or bars
Right.
down that end of Dayton, so, you know.
Yeah.
I can also see the first from Main Street down to, what is it, Vine as being a viable part of the district where the other 2 blocks might not be, but I also understand that coming from Bellevue would benefit Dayton also, being able to come to Dayton with that same container
Yeah.
that Bellevue uses or Dayton uses.
Yeah, there was limited commercial spaces between Bellevue and, I guess, not Vine, but Vine actually has 2 commercial spaces that are going to serve alcohol and beer, I think. I don't know about liquor, but I know that the new bookstore plans to get a wine and beer license, and I think the lodge also serves beer and wine perhaps. So there are a couple in between, but the majority of our businesses serving alcohol are down in the area around Barry.
Yeah.
And up to, what's the street there where J. Millard is?
McKinney.
McKinney. That's where the majority of them are, right
Yeah.
there. But there are a couple, I think the idea is try to spur more development
Yeah.
in the areas, the commercial areas between the two, to our district and Bellevue's district, to try to spur some of these buildings that are now converted into residential, which used to be commercial, maybe into restaurants. So I think that's the idea behind it, but again, they can decide whatever district they want it to be. We could be smaller than it is now. If they want to make that choice.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation. It kind of clears up things for me anyway. Thank you.
On tonight's agenda, by the way, there's a resolution setting forth the rules and regulations and the limitations in this district. So you'll hear a little bit more about that later on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. The podium is still available for anybody who'd like to speak on any orders or resolutions for this evening's agenda. I'll go ahead and close that then.
I have a question.
And then,
So when we talk about this store tonight, and Jay just said we talk about it a little bit more later, can we have an open conversation then?
Yeah.
About what he
Always.
just said, what she just said? Okay.
it always goes first, second, and then conversation.
Okay.
Next on the agenda will be the presentation from John Chamberlain, CPA of Van Gorder, Walker and Company, on the city's audited financial statement for the fiscal year ending in June 30th of 2022. Mr. Chamberlain, the floor is yours, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Mayor Chamberlain and Owen now, by the way. So, yeah, yeah, we changed that. Thank you. John Chamberlain, I'm a CPA and partner at Chamberlain, Owen and Company in Erlanger, and we're a CPA firm that specializes in audits of governmental entities here in Northern Kentucky. And we do thank you for the opportunity to do the work here in the city of Dayton. We were here in the middle of January to do your audit work. And I want to thank Jay and Tiffany at the time and staff who took good care of us when we were here. And we're kind of pesky. We ask for a lot of things and we get in everybody's way. And so we do appreciate everybody putting up with us and being so kind to us. So our audit presentation, the second slide there, Jay, shows our audit opinion. And the audit opinion is that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with governmental accounting standards. And that's what we call an unmodified opinion, meaning no modifications are required to that opinion. And that's the highest opinion that we give. Next slide. In every governmental audit that we do a review of your internal controls. We look at your riskiest assets. So that would be your cash, your expenditures, your revenue assets, things like that, that come in the door for the city. And do you have the appropriate segregation of duties for those assets? Are multiple people handling those transactions and that type of thing? So we look at those and then we do kind of opine on that in that we had no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control to report. So that's good for a small city. That means you have the people in place to make those segregations happen. As part of every governmental audit, we also look at compliance. That would be compliance with KRS, compliance with any bond or debt covenant, and then compliance with your CSRS contributions. And we had no issues of non-compliance to report as well. You'll receive a letter to those in charge of governance from us here in the next probably week or so. And it'll tell some of these things. We did make one planned audit adjustment. We adjust your CSRS balances every year. That's just something we do for most of our audit clients. We also made an adjustment to the Dayton Bellevue Fire Department, your joint investment in the fire department that you have. We make 3 adjustments to the general fund and 1 to the park fund. And most of those were just due froms, things that you owe between funds. We wanted to get those cleaned up this year. So we made some adjustments there. The next slide, asset comparison. Yeah, it's one more, Jay. There you go. And you see, so this is your cash in the green, your capital assets in the blue, and then your investment in the fire department, which tends to be a negative asset due to the CSRS liability. You see the green jumped up there about about $900,000 there. You got right at $1.4 million in American Recovery Plan Act funds from the federal government. You got that in cash ahead of spending it. You spent about $457,000 on some projects here in the city of those funds, and then you deferred about $1 million to the 23 and 24 fiscal years. So that cash hit, that $1 million that basically you deferred into next year, that's a significant reason for that huge cash uptick there. We do a rule of thumb in governmental accounting. At June 30th, we want you to have about at least 3 up to 6 months of cash on hand at the end of the fiscal year to get you through to some of your tax filings and that type of thing. 3 months for the city of Dayton would be about 1.3 million. You have 4.2 million, so about 9 months worth of cash on hand. So the city's in a very strong cash position. Next slide. This is the liabilities for the city. The yellow are current fund liabilities, and you can see those have been very level over the last 5 years up until this year when they jumped up significantly because that deferred revenue that I've mentioned, that $1 million in deferred revenue, about half of that was deferred to the current year, 2023. That's called a current liability in governmental financial statements. So that's why that number is so high. The remainder of it is just your standard current liabilities that you have every year. The red is your long-term debts. That's your leases payable. The other half of that deferred revenue, the other $500,000 is in that number. And then you have about $149,000 of capital leases payable at June 30th. And that's the remainder of those capital leases. The orange is your CSRS, OPEB, and pension liabilities for your employees. That number did drop in 2022. Basically, the way that works is that's measured at June 30th, 2021. And one of the factors that goes into calculating the CSRS pension liability is the performance of the investments that the pension is invested in. And in 2021, the market was going gangbusters. And so that made your liability lower. My guess is next year when these numbers come out, or when the 22 numbers come out, we'll see that that number's back up again. So it should be interesting to see that. But those are your SERS and pension liability for all of your city employees. Next slide is revenues versus expenditures. Your green line is your revenues and your red is your expenditures. And you can see the city's always done a really good job of managing revenues to expenditures, or expenditures to revenue, I guess I should say. $5.3 million in revenue, 5.2 million, almost 5.3 in expenditures, about a 73,600 gain, or a net income, if you will, in the city, compared to about $113,000 in the prior year. Now that $457,000 of that American Recovery Plan Act, some of that was recognized during the year. So that's part of that big jump that you see. And then you did $148,000 of expenditures in urban renewal and $223,000 in capital improvements that you use those funds for. Next slide is just a detailed slide on revenue. Again, shows your revenue at $5.3 million, roughly a 19% increase. And that consists of property taxes right at 2.2 million, about a 9% increase over the prior year. Again, you didn't increase your rate, but you got a 9% through property valuation increase. So it's good for the city. Licenses and permits, about 1.7, almost 1.8 million. It's about an 18% increase over the prior year. The intergovernmental, 686,000. That's almost a 300% increase. And again, that's those ARPA funds of 457,000. And charges for services, just about the same as last year at $387,000. Next slide is expenditures for the year at $5.2 million, about a 20% increase. Again, they grew as the revenues grew. Police expenditures about 1.5 million, a 21% increase. Fire and EMS 1.1 million, about 11%. Professional services about 24% increase at 773,000. General government at 580, that's about a 21%. And then public works at 444,000, right at a 17% increase. And then it steps on down from there. These next couple of slides are just some of your larger expenditure line items, and I've shown them over a 5-year period. And so you can see there, the police has maintained, they've gone from 1.1 to 1.5 billion over 5 years. So it's been a pretty level, a little bit of an increase this year, but it's been pretty level over the last few years. And you did some with some of the ARPA funds, you did some police expenditures. So that's the reason for some of that growth. Fire expenditures, the next slide. There you go. Right at 1.1 million. Again, very level over the last 5 years. A slight growth this year. You did in 2017. They bought a fire truck, and you're paying on some of that fire truck. They're making a contribution to Dayton Bellevue for that fire truck every year. So when that gets paid off, I believe it's I think at the end of this year. Is it 2 years? 2 more years? A couple more years. Okay. It's close. Then you'll see that probably drop back down just a little bit. Public works expenditures, and these can jump all around basically based on what the needs are in the cities. If you're doing a lot of road work or repaving, milling and paving roads, things like that. So they jump around quite a bit, but you see $444,000 this year, significant increase over the prior year. General government expenditures, the next slide, about 580,000. Again, very consistent over the years, about 20% this year compared to last year. And then finally, waste collection. And this one, your waste collection people need to charge more probably because they have. Yeah, you really beat those people down, man. that number hadn't hardly changed at all. So you're doing a good job of contract. Somebody's doing a good job of contract management. So, but that's the overview of the financial statements. We'll release these. We're waiting for one number from your developers on internal industrial revenue bonds to put one number in the notes of the financials until we have the finals. So once we have that number, we'll release the finals and get those out to you. The city will get a copy. Any questions or anything that I can answer about the audit process or financial statements in general?
Counsel?
Long-term debt, on your
Yes.
slide 6,
Mhm.
where it jumped up to 149. And we've been pretty proud that the city has not had any long-term debt for a long time. You're saying that that is affiliated with the ARPA?
Yeah, what that is, and let me explain that just a little better. When we do deferred revenue, a deferred revenue means you've received revenue, but you haven't earned it yet. So you haven't done, if you receive grant money, they give you the cash, but you haven't earned it yet by doing the work that you're supposed to do for that cash. Okay, and so the city is indebted basically to the federal government to give them work, to provide some service for that money. So if you want to think of it that way, so you're going to pay them back by repaving a street, building a park, whatever it is you're going to spend the money on those recovery act funds on. Whatever you're going to do is how you're going to repay that debt.
Understood.
And you've already got the cash in the bank to do it.
Thanks. I didn't know it was classified that way.
Yeah, that's how it's classified. And so it's $1 million total, just over $1 million, 1.02 million. And it's about 500,000 of current, meaning that is the amount that you're probably going to spend or hopefully going to spend in the 2023 fiscal year. And then about $510,000 of long-term that you'd spend in the 24 fiscal year.
All right. Thanks for that clarification.
Sure, not a problem. Good question.
Counsel? I guess my question is something I'm always concerned about. We are financially stable, correct?
That's what the report says. The report seems to indicate that.
That's a good indication. Well, I appreciate you for your time and your diligence. And if anybody has any other questions or comments, I'd like to thank you for your time.
Yep. My contact information is there if you do have any questions. So we're happy to entertain.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain. Have a good evening. Next on our agenda, it would be a second reading of ordinance number 2023, number 1. This is an ordinance establishing an entertainment destination center in the city of Dayton. Do I have a motion to accept 2023, number 1?
Move to accept ordinance 2023, number 1.
Member Volters made the motion to accept. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Neiman, which opens up comments. So, Ms. Neiman, you said you wanted to have a discussion?
Sure.
Now's the time.
Sure. I was wondering if either one of you would like to just sort of reiterate why we are considering this. What benefit does it bring to Dayton? And then maybe specifically, why do we start it at O'Fallon as opposed to starting it at Vine?
So, and I don't know, Jared, you may want to chime in. I know you've worked diligently on this since they've been your project for the most part, but we looked at it, we talked about it, and we thought that, as I mentioned earlier, that if we wanted to attract people that are in Bellevue on their final Friday or their first Fridays or on the weekends, and it's a beautiful night and they want to come into our community, they're not less likely to get in their car and drive down here and hop out and go into it. They're more likely to walk down our beautiful street with these beautiful houses. I know there are some residences there, but our experience in dealing with Bellevue is they have residences on their streets too, and they have very few problems. They've not really had any major issues. And we can always, if we do have major issues, we can shut it down or we can reduce the size to a smaller area. But the idea was to try to get people who now currently stop at O'Fallon from coming to Dayton to filter on down into our community. That's the primary reason for the size of the district. We also wanted to make sure we got all the businesses, not just the ones that are primarily down near Berry Street, but the Lodge and, the new coffee shop that's going in Roebling. So there are a couple of residential areas along that route. There are residential areas as well, but there are also commercial buildings that once were commercial establishments that are now used for residential purposes. We'd like to see those converted back into commercial purposes. So that's why the district is the size it is. Is there other questions in that?
Well, the one thing I think I could see maybe happening is that the Liquor King could benefit from that in a way, possibly if they have some kind of special event. They may benefit from that as well, from people moving from Bellevue to Dayton, because they're right there on the borderline.
Right. We
But
kind of talked about that.
Yeah,
That's
I think
reaching out to them.
that could happen. The other thing is that I know when this was first broached and we had just a brief discussion here in council chambers, the chief got up and he made it very clear that if people are walking down the street and they are wobbling and weebling and obviously intoxicated, they will be arrested. If they are walking down the street and hooping and hollering and raising Cain, they're going to be approached by our police officers. The other thing is this goes to midnight. It's not like it goes to 2 a.m. So it does have a stopping point. We do have noise ordinances and we have those other ordinances and they will be enforced, right, Chief? Okay, I just want to make sure of that. But I can see this, especially during good weather, benefiting quite a few of our businesses, especially if there's a special event like at Monument Park or something. I think it could bring people out, and I think it would benefit the businesses and help our city, you know.
So we also should point out that the people that may have alcohol with them have to have them in specially identified and designated cups. They have to get those at participating restaurants and bars. So you just can't go out with a can of beer or a mixed drink in your glass from your kitchen. You literally have to be carrying them in a container that is part of the district and identified as such. And if you aren't doing that, you will be cited for that as well.
So the city sells the businesses the cups, right?
We do, that's
And then
correct.
what do we do with that revenue?
It's basically a pass-through. Whatever we are charged to produce the cups is what we charge.
Okay.
I know this is the second section with the rules.
That's
It's
coming,
separate
right.
from what we're discussing here, whether or not to establish it. But in the rules, I believe it does say that, you can't just keep a cup and walk around all the time with it. It has to be filled with alcoholic beverages from one of the businesses.
That's correct.
Okay.
You have to speak, you either just go to the microphone to speak, or the mayor has to recognize you to speak, so we just can't hear you
I'm
on.
happy to recognize you, Becky, if you want. I can hear you fine.
No,
But the
she has to
public
go.
can't hear you. The people
Oh.
listening can't hear you, so that's the problem.
You have to go to the mic.
How you going to know that they filled their cup up by one of the businesses? How are you going to know that?
If you
How are
see-
you going to know that they ain't going to save that cup for next week and use their own cup?
Yeah, that's a
How
valid,
are you going to know that? You're
That's a
not.
that's a valid point, but if you see,
And you're making recommendations for the places on Fine Street that's not even there yet, but we're going to go ahead and vote on it. Why? You lived on the avenue for a long time. You wouldn't have had this in front of your house, but now that you don't live on the avenue, it's a different deal.
I disagree with you, Beck.
How's that? Would you have this in front of your house?
Sure, I'd
Would
still
you have
support
this,
this.
Miss Taylor next to you? Would you? This
yeah.
goes on till 2:00 in the morning.
No.
Is
no.
this is that what you're saying? This going
No,
to go on
it
at
does
2:00 in
not.
the
And
morning
it-
every weekend?
The ordinance states 12 o'clock, it's done.
So we 12:00 at night every weekend, 12:00 at night on the whole weekend. We got to put up with it.
You don't have to put up with anything. If someone is causing a problem, just like they would normally, you call the police and they will come. If someone is raising Cain or out of
We
line,
shouldn't have to babysit the people that want to drink, and you want to open this up for the people of Bellevue. Let's give them the Yellow Brick Road to Dayton. You really believe they're going to spend that much money in Dayton? I don't.
I want to do anything that's going to support our businesses and help
I
our
wish we
business.
had something family oriented for the city of Dayton. The families and the residents deserve better than alcohol and gambling. What? Come on. Can't we do better? This is Dayton. We're not talking about Bellevue. You're not getting paid to enforce Bellevue. We're talking about Dayton.
Thank you, Ms. Mason.
So, my concerns with it, and I mean, maybe this comes down to where we're talking about the rules or whatnot. But again, it is just that in comparison to other entertainment districts, it does seem that our boundary is pretty residentially heavy, because, okay, I'm a dork, so I counted. So, like from O'Fallon down to Vine, just on the north side alone, we've got 16 residences, and then we come up with 2 potential participants in this. Then we got another 18 residents to get down to the Ultrados, which would then be another participant. So then on the south side, there's 30 residents to get from O'Fallon down to the Rose Room. So I just wondered like how much outreach has been done to the folks that live in this neighborhood who can potentially be affected by this ordinance. Was there been, like notices given out to them to let them know that this was something going on? I mean, like not everybody pays attention. And, when we did the historic overlay, because it did affect these property owners, there was a notice that went out, there was a public meeting, and I just wondered if those were any things that were under consideration with this district as well.
Jared, I don't think anything went out in a letter. I think we've advertised it, we've publicized it on.
Put out the newsletter and then our traditional channels, but a specific letter to each individual resident did not.
I think we do have a very limited number of businesses that'll benefit from this, but I think they will benefit. And I think there is a little bit of an issue with the residents there, but, I really don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. And I think it's going to be more centralized most of the time. I just don't see it being that much of a problem. I really don't. And I know some people are concerned about litter, but you can, Polar Pops are litter. I mean, there's all kinds of litter all the time that we deal with. I think we'll deal with those issues. And I think our police department will police the area and do a fine job in making sure that the individuals follow the rules and regulations set forth in the ordinance. And as Mr. Jay has said, that if we find it is an issue or we find it is a major problem, then we can always revisit the situation.
I haven't talked to anybody about this, other city council members about how they're feeling. I have a vague idea of how they're feeling. If I were, as I'm considering this vote tonight, what I think is one of the biggest benefits is the work that Civic Club and whoever else, Jared has been doing on Monument Park. I think that the events that they're having there throughout the summer have totally been building up slowly, and it's becoming kind of actually a very nice family thing. I went to a couple movies there. Kids, because that area is so huge, the kids can run wild and run around when they're bored and they won't watch the movie or they won't do whatever. I would like to say, I guess, that, well, the parents don't need beer to be going down there. But it seems like, a thing. I mean, people really like to have like a beer down there, a glass of wine. It's always been very prohibitive. You can't have this, can't have that, you got to sneak it in, you're going to get busted, blah, blah, blah. And so just to have sort of an environment where we have regular public, not expensive or free, fun things to do here that are just for Dayton. And it isn't high pressure. You can just kind of come down there, hang out, see who's down there, maybe go to Hometown Heroes and get a beer. Maybe Kate's Catering wants to participate, go down the block and then come back. That's how I envision it. And the same thing for on Vine, the Lodge, and then Roebling's coming in, they're getting the beer. And they have in the past cut that block out and had like music and block parties. And that's another thing that's free. You can just wander on down. There's something going on in Dayton instead of, a completely dark street while Bellevue has everything going on. I mean, they have you know, they're painting an alley, they're whatever, they're whatever. It would be nice to be able to see, you know, your fellow Daytonians once in a while in a low pressure, chilled out situation, come and go. We know that's going on Friday night or Saturday. It's nice. And so that is the main benefit that I'm seeing for this is, you know, it doesn't have to do with the school. If you don't have kids in the school anymore, just kind of hang out. So that's my thought about this. And the other thing, yeah, I feel like maybe if we're wrong and it turns out it's super rowdy and, you know, Chief Halfhill says he thinks it's fine, but what if he's wrong? You know, then we can take it back, right? I mean, we can revisit this and say, wow, this is out of control, or wow, this is great. But I think that we need to kind of start opening this town up, and we really need revenue. We don't have all the businesses that Bellevue has. We don't have all the revenue that Bellevue has. So I think we need to give current businesses what they want and have an environment that invites more business on our business district. Those are my thoughts.
Does anybody know how many people have been arrested in Bellevue when they?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I spoke to the city administrator about whether they had any issues, and he said they really had no issues. Whether they've had any arrests, I don't know specifically, but we could find that out and let you know. But I'm not aware.
Anything like that? I mean, that would probably be a good indicator of how things would go here.
Right.
A similar situation. Well, probably with half the businesses that would be participating.
Right. I mean, the mayor of Bellevue lives in the district, so I'm sure he would be the first one to stop it if there were major issues. So, but I can check to see whether they've had any arrest. He told me that they've had no problems. That means no arrest. I'm assuming that means no arrest, but he said they've had no problems since they've started the district.
One of the reasons for wanting to extend it to O'Fallon, I think the intent of administration was to allow people to cross back and forth so that there's no Great Wall of O'Fallon anymore. Would that require an interlocal agreement with the city of Bellevue to allow our cups over there and vice versa?
It would. So right now, it would require you to get a separate cup in our district. So we'd have to have an interlocal agreement. We're allowing Bellevue to come into use their cups in our city and vice versa.
Has that been discussed with them yet?
I have not, but I don't think there'd be a problem with that. They've talked about interlocal agreements with golf carts, and I'm sure that they would be amenable to doing that. There might be, we might have to do, I don't know.
Because that's, I think one of the main concerns is extending it all the way to O'Fallon rather than just in the central business district. I would prefer that interlocal agreement was already worked out, but we'll have to presume that they will agree to that. If not, I think that's a moot point as far as why to extend it that far. Family Dollar doesn't sell booze yet. Been traveling around a little bit and looking around, been sending some things to Jared and administration, and I was in Sewanee, Georgia. It really jumped out at me. They created a public park down there. Absolutely incredible. Of course, they have a lot more funding than we do, but what they did 10 years ago was the voters established a public gathering space initiative. And the voters approved a special tax to expand their park spaces so that they get out and meet their neighbors and everything else. One big comparison between us and Bellevue is we don't have that. If you get out on the avenue in Bellevue or any of these other places, Covington and OTR, and we're not OTR, we're not Covington, we're not Bellevue, but the one thing everybody has in common, they have these spaces where you can meet your neighbors and not just on Facebook, exchange ideas. We don't have that here because of the narrow sidewalks, because businesses are just starting to take off here over the years. I think that opening this up, especially during the spring and summer and fall, maybe that's a need that people just needed to have, the ability to be able to stand on the sidewalk and talk with your neighbor, or, you don't have to go into Hometown Heroes or the Rose Room or somewhere to talk to somebody. You can actually talk to them out on the sidewalk. I'd like to give people credit and a chance to, I mean, maybe I have too much faith in my fellow man, but yeah, there's going to be incidences where somebody's loud or littering or whatever. That's a police issue. We already have laws in place for that. Extending it to O'Fallon, I think, is a stretch. But if it opens up the commercial spaces that are available there, especially at Vine, if it benefits the Liquor King and has more events there, I'd be for it. What I would ask, whether this gets passed or tabled, is that letter to every property in the area, from Main Street all the way down to O'Fallon, that a letter from the city be sent explaining the rules, explaining the reasoning. And if you have a problem with this, contact administration, or if it's a police issue, to contact the police. I think it's worth a try. We got to inject some life into our downtown. We've already committed a lot of CCAP money. We've got people wanting to invest in the city, and I think this would be a good signal to them. I would ask for a police report regularly at every month, if this passes, of any incidences that this would cause, so that we can come back and say, if we do it and on the first night it's a mess, we can rescind it or make it even tighter. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Member Neary.
If I could add to that,
Mr. AFL?
Councilman Wyrick, I did reach out to Chief McLean. They haven't had any issues. It was at first thought and very suspected of possible issues, and he was surprised that they have not. So I just wanted to share that with the group, if that helps any. So,
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you, Chief. Comments are still open for anyone from council or administration. All right, we'll go ahead and close them. So we already have a first from Member Volter and a second from Member Neiman. Comments have been closed. Roll call, please.
Member Volter,
Aye.
Member Neary,
Aye.
Member Neiman,
Aye.
Member Kelly,
Aye.
Member Levens,
No.
Member Wyrick.
Aye.
Okay.
5-1, the ayes have it. Next on the docket would be the first reading of ordinance number 2022-2, an ordinance recognizing Monument Park and Riverfront Commons as city parks in the city of Dayton, Kentucky. Ms. Beeman.
So just background. I'm sorry.
No, go for it, sir.
She gonna read it? You want to read it first?
Ms. Bainey, do you want to read it?
Sure.
Please.
Okay. Amending section 9501 of the Dayton Code of Ordinances recognizing Monument Park and Riverfront Commons as city parks in the city of Dayton, Kentucky. Is that what you want me to read?
Thank you, ma'am. You did a great job.
Thank you. Sorry for jumping the gun there.
No, you're fine.
So Councilmember Neary had mentioned to me, we had some discussions about the need to add Monument Park and Riverfront Commons. He asked me to put this on agenda at the last meeting. The reason is that they're among the 4 parks that we spend most of our resources on. So we've got Sergeant Park, Gilliland, Monument, and Riverfront Commons. We spend a lot of time and resources, Public Works does, on those parks. I would say probably these 2 parks in particular, especially Riverfront Commons with the flood wall and now the trails, and Monument Park with all the events we have there, and the Christmas event and the Friday events. A lot of time and money spent there. So in the past, this was really important because there was a separate parks board, and this ordinance dictated where money was spent. So technically, there's no problem spending our money in our parks, but we want to make it clear that these are parks and that money can be spent there. I think since the board was abolished, I still think you could spend park money there, but just to make sure it's clear that these 2 parks are indeed parks, and there's no question about whether we can spend park money there. We thought it was important to amend this ordinance to reflect that.
Thank you, Mr. Fawcett, for your explanation of this ordinance. And this is just, oh, sorry about that. Again, this is just a first reading. Next in the docket would be order resolutions. The first one would be 2023 number 12 Romeo. This is an order resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a real estate purchase agreement to purchase property located at 1004 7th Avenue. Ms. Bain?
An order and resolution authorizing the mayor to execute deed to purchase property located at 7th Avenue and authorizing the city administrator prepare and execute a charitable contribution tax exemption certificate form on behalf of the city in connection with this property. Purchase, sorry.
So way background, as you all know, we've acquired 701 Boone, 703 Boone, and recently 705 Boone. 701 had a building that was dilapidated, and we were able to tear it down last year. And 705, after a year of struggling with someone who bought that property in foreclosure, we acquired it from them. Same type of deal. They gave us a small amount we paid a small amount of money, and then we gave them a charitable deduction that they can use on their taxes for another chunk of that purchase price. This is the same thing. This property was purchased by a tax bill company. They buy tax bills from the counties. They weren't going to do anything with it. It was just sitting there. And so the gentleman who owned it, the company reached out to me and said, hey, I saw you did this with 705. Would you be interested in doing it for our property? The great thing is that this property sits directly behind 701, 703, and 705. So this is an area I see that's got potential for development. We control this corner here. We can control the type of development we want. So I don't see us doing anything with this property in the short term, but in the long term, if we talk to developers about developing on that hillside, we have control because we have these key properties and we haven't paid a whole lot for them, which is great. Now we are going to have to pay to tear down that building at 705, and that would be great because that's an entrance into our city that's been horrible with those two vacant and deteriorating buildings. And I think, Rick, I don't know what the utilities have all been closed off. I think Duke's got one more to go, right? Once that's done, we have got an offer to tear that down, and hopefully that will be done once the utilities are closed out, and we'll have that whole hillside gone of dilapidated buildings, and we'll own a nice little section there. So that's what this is about.
Thank you, Mr. Fawcett, for your explanation. Do we have a motion to accept resolution 2023 number 12 Romeo?
I'll make the motion to accept resolution 2023-12 Romeo.
Member Kelly has made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Neiman. Do we have any conversation? Questions, comments, concerns? Roll call, please, Ms. Bainey.
Member Neary,
Aye.
Member Neiman,
Aye.
Member Kelly,
Aye.
Member Levens,
Aye.
Member Wyrick,
Aye.
Member Volter.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next in the docket would be order resolution 202313 Romeo. This is an order resolution adopting rules and regulations for the city's rope walk entertainment district. Ms. Bainey?
Okay. The resolution and order of the City Council of the City of Dayton, Kentucky, adopting rules, regulations for the city's rope walk district.
Excellent reading. Excellent.
Thanks.
Mr. Fawcett?
So as I mentioned before, we passed the ordinance of creating the district. Now we have regulations that go in that district. This is based on exactly the same regulations as Bellevue has, right? Jared, is that where it came from? So you and me, I can go through them a little bit and discuss them. Alcohol may be carried, possessed, and consumed on sidewalks in the entertainment district, which we discussed as identified in the map in the ordinance. Days and times are Monday through Sunday, 10 to midnight. Alcohol must be purchased from a licensed alcohol vendor located within the district. Alcohol can only be carried in a city-approved district cup, and can only be purchased at participating vendors in the district. Not all vendors may not want to participate. They don't have to. It's voluntary. Alcohol may be carried into businesses, including shops, restaurants, bars, unless the business prohibits that. Patrons traveling from An establishment serving alcohol must use these cups in all outdoor areas of the entertainment district. No alcohol will be brought into the district from outside sources. Alcohol may not be taken outside the district for any reason. All state and local laws will be strictly enforced, including laws prohibiting public intoxication and disorderly conduct. All alcohol vendors in the district shall refuse to sell or provide alcohol in a city-approved cup to any person or persons who are visibly intoxicated. All discarded cups must be properly disposed of in waste and recycling containers. Littering is prohibited in this district and will be strictly enforced. And district patrons must walk on sidewalks and in crosswalks. Patrons may carry their beverages as they walk in the entertainment area and as they window shop or travel to and from businesses in the district or at any designated tables or benches in the district. Patrons may not stand or linger with these beverages in front of or inside of businesses that are not participating in the program. The patrons may walk with their beverages, but do not stop and linger with them unless it is at designated tables or benches located in the district. That's the rules.
Mr. Fawcett, could we, the fourth bullet in the rules section, could we make an addition to that?
What is that?
That purchased cups may be used for only one evening only and then must be discarded?
Yep. We'll make it now. So we'll call it REW cups, REWED, which is Royal Park Entertainment District. Cups may only be used during one evening, or would be one day,
use.
one
One-time use.
Yeah, it's a one-time use.
as one-time use. We only think about that. May only be used. Entertainment cup districts may only be used in the district one day use, I'm saying. How would we want to say that?
Yeah. One day use. I don't think you want to go 24 hours because that could be stretched to the
Right, yeah,
next day.
it's not 24 hours anyway.
Expire at midnight 01.
There you go.
Okay, there you go.
There you go.
May only be used one day and expire at the end of that day.
There you go.
May only be used on one day and expire at the end of that day. That use expires at the end of that day. So here's what I have. The RWED cups may only be used on one day, and that use expires at the end of that day.
I saw in last month's minutes that someone had asked about additional trash cans. And there was a comment made that you thought that perhaps there were grants available for trash cans and benches. I wondered if there was any update to that.
So Rick, I know we have, I saw one trash can here. Is that available to be used that we have back here in this building? You're going to use it out here? We're going to need to, we are acquiring some trash cans, I think, under this grant. Is that
Yes,
correct?
we do have a grant that's already been approved and it has 14 trash cans with it that we can place.
Okay.
So we have an explanation of a 2023-13 Romeo. Do we have a motion to accept with the amendments that have been requested for 2023-13 Romeo? Do I have a motion to accept?
Move to accept with the amendment.
Member Volkers made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Neiman's made a second. Any further comments regarding? Roll call, please, Ms. Baney.
Member Neiman,
Aye.
Member Kelly,
Aye.
Member Levens,
It's going to be a no, but I would like to state, I support the businesses and drinking outside. Have your drink, you're ready to leave, you throw it away, walk to the next. I just don't agree with walking up and down the avenue. I think that's going.
Member Wyrick?
Aye.
Member Bolter?
Aye.
Member Neary?
Aye.
Thank you.
The ayes have it. Only one more, and this would be Order Resolution 2023, number 14, Romeo. 14, there's that number again. This is an order resolution appointing, I'm going to butcher this. Seisha Fenimore. Thank you, Seisha. To the Dayton Planning and Zoning Commission. Do I have a, there's no reason to read that. I just kind of read it for you. Thanks. All in favor? Seisha, oh yeah, you want
speak? You
yeah,
wanna-
please.
Tell a little
Hold on a
bit,
second, hold on a second.
tell a little bit about your
Let's give her-
background.
Let's give her the benefit of the podium.
Hi, everyone. My name is Seisha Fenimore. Live at 1205 Dayton Avenue. I have a background in real estate, and I'm a new resident here. I'm excited to have met some of you already and making new friends in the neighborhood. It feels like it's important to be involved in decision-making here, and so I have an interest in really being a part of the community and listening to what the constituents of the community have to say. And so I'd like to be included in the board and try to make the best decisions for everyone based on fairness and what's best for the community.
Seisha, where'd you come from?
Washington State.
Wow. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for
West-
stepping up.
That's right. Thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
volunteering.
Filling boards is one of the hardest things we do. So appreciate your volunteerism.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions or
No, but we need a motion.
do we need, oh, do I have a
You
motion to
want a
accept Ms. Fenimore to the board?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms.
I'll
Neal.
second.
Thank you, Mr. Volter. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions?
Thanks, Seisha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Seisha. Moving directly along will be the department head reports. The wheel is broken on my phone, so we're gonna go ahead and do ladies first. Ms. Cassie Patterson, if you'd like to address the administration.
Okay, let's see. You have a copy of my report. I wanted to point out on my report this month, there were approximately 25 or so on here that had no description. And what those are, so in the past, the delinquent rental licenses were ran through the clerk's office. We decided we were going to push those over to code so that we can cite them for not having a license. There were about 25 on the list that some have never had a rental license. Most of them are at least a year past due. So that's what those are blank for. And you will probably not see those very often, except for this time of the year, because we'll probably just send those out one time. But they are fined just like a code fine. And then we will move forward and file liens on them if they don't respond. They can appeal them. Most people will probably call and say they're not a rental or try to explain instead of getting fined, hopefully. And then, let's see, what's the other thing I wanted to tell you about? The other thing I wanted to tell you about is last night at Code Board, we approved our 2023 abandoned urban properties list. We've had 22 new. These are properties that are at least 3 years delinquent and are blighted. So that will take their current tax rate to 0.47 to 0.75 for each $100 of assessed value. Certified letters were sent out today to these people, and same thing, they can, appeal the decision. They can, last year we had a really good response on people coming in and getting current with their taxes. So we hope that that's the case this year. And that's it. Do you have any questions?
And it wouldn't just be their unpaid taxes or anything like that. If they're vacant, they also have to pay the vacant fine, correct?
Well,
Yes.
it's a little confusing because this also is vacant property. So the one on the fine is for vacant buildings. So we can actually assess $500 for the first 6 months for a vacant building and $1,000 for a year, but we can't do it on just vacant property. So vacant property sometimes is the one that has 3 years of tax bills that aren't paid. And so these are being charged at the higher rate. So we have kind of a double whammy with buildings. We can do both the vacant properties higher tax rate plus the vacant property assessment if they're a building. That makes sense? Yeah.
And I noticed on your report where you list the owner city and state, there's hardly any of them that are Dayton residents.
Correct. And that's a lot of our cross-referencing, how we find these, because say, for instance, somebody calls in, typically what I'll do is I'll run them through the PVA. And if they have a different mailing address, either I send them a vacant property registration or a rental license application, because they're not living in it. So it's either vacant or they're renting it. The majority of them are I'd say pretty well at paying, but there's a lot of them out there that we just don't even know about that are renting their property and we don't know. So we have been keeping a list. PVA has been sending us a list of all the property transfers. We double check those. We do try really, really hard to kind of figure out who is a rental property and who is not, but sometimes it's just impossible.
Right.
So, but I think we have a good handle on it now. We work together, the clerk's office and myself and people that are out, from the city, and they'll say, hey, police department, they'll say, hey, we went to a call and this was an apartment 1 and apartment 2, and we didn't have any idea that it was even, a rental unit. So, but yeah, that's it.
I had a question real quick. You said that most of the vacant properties aren't owned by Dayton residents. Is that what you said?
A lot of them are not.
Who are they owned by usually? Like
All around the country.
For the most,
All
just
over.
random,
All over the
Okay.
United States.
Huh, okay.
We had one group they had an office in California, an office in Virginia, and an office in New York. And they came into the city, they bought a ton of properties, and they just let them sit. And we've discussed them before. We've kind of whittled that list down.
Yeah.
So it was like an
a very
investment
small-
group?
So
Yes.
And then they kind of let them sit?
They just would let them sit.
Okay.
I
So-
think they just bought so many that they became overwhelmed. And, little Dayton was kind of pushed at the back of the list. So we cited them and fined them and things like that. It'll be part of my,
And we're much more
Saturday.
aggressive than most cities. So these are hedge funds that during the last housing crisis came in after all those houses were available and bought out a bunch of them. They had the money to do it. And then what they try to do is they just sit on them, and then they might take the best ones and try to rehab them and then flip them. But if they don't flip them, then they rent them. And then a lot of them, they don't do anything. And that's when we jump on them and say, hey, you got to either pay this vacant properties, and we start sending for code fines for not cutting the grass. They finally, for the most part, because of Cassie's work, they're pretty much out of date. And what this one group is, they said, you guys are too tough on us, so they're gone.
So is that like around 2008?
They've been doing it since probably 2009, 8.
years.
10.
And they're in every city in Northern Kentucky. I mean, they go all the way out to Florence. Myself, Bellevue, and Covington, we're pretty close knit. We compare notes and things like that. And they all have problems with this group. So
Okay.
it's not only a Dayton problem, it's a
They
Northern
have more
Kentucky
problems because they
problem.
don't have the capacity that, we're really focused on it here.
Right.
Don't think that they are able to do that. So
Right.
they know better than to try to do that much more here.
And I'd say probably 75% of the properties that are rentals are out of state. Well, I'll say out of Dayton. We do have people that are, local, but we also, with our rental license, we want a local contact. So a lot of these out-of-state people have property management companies that manage, and they're local. So if there was an emergency or something like that, so.
Yeah, the new rental inspection ordinance requires them to have a local state, someone in the state to reach out to if they're an out-of-state individual or company.
Mhm. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Lucas?
Sorry, I missed last month's council meeting. But for this month, we did a lot of potholes in the last 4 or 5 days. Used about 3 tons of coal patch. And then Jay and I went out one day, I think it was last week, or it could have been yesterday, I'm not sure, and looked at a couple other streets that is actually going to have to be milled and paved a little bit, but they're not going to be major problems. And the water company, they'll be up on Locust and Silver where the intersections meet, putting in a new water service line, and that'll be Thursday. That'll probably be, that area right there will be closed.
It'll be Thursday and Friday, Thursday for sure, probably
Yeah,
Friday as
They
well.
think they can do it one day, but it could be lead into Friday too. And then Jay and I met with water company up on Dayton Pike.
So explain a little bit about that and the problem that they have up there on.
With all the water main breaks in between Chateau and River Point, that real rough area there.
They've had 13 in the past, what, 2 or 3?
3 years, I think,
Yeah.
yeah. 6 or 7 in the last year and a half. And they want to try, they're going to come up and pave it, repave it from where the bad part of the road stops almost down to River Point. And they want to try that first. We try to get them to
We
move
want
the
them to
water
replace it.
line and if this doesn't work, then there's a good chance they may be doing it then.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
But at least it's because of the water leakage from underneath the street, there's a number of potholes that have been created there. So that will take care of that issue.
Yeah, they're going to try to
which-
widen it a little bit too, right there in that area.
Right, which is needed
And
as
they
well.
said about 6 to 8 weeks, they should be able to get to that. I call it the river walking trail down behind down on the river. The piece of equipment that the city purchased for us. We went down there and cut it. It's been probably a couple months ago now. And we did it in a little less than 2 days with the equipment. So I'm figuring 3.5 cuts, the equipment to be paid for. And we'll probably have to do it twice a year.
The views are incredible now, and it's much safer. I think we're seeing a lot more people on the trail because of that. Some of the neighbors had said, particularly young families with kids and women walking on the trails, I think they feel
Yeah,
much
we got a lot
safer.
of compliments down there while we were doing it and stuff. And then I bought 2 new signs. They were delivered today. So I'll get them up because the other one disappeared and the other one's damaged real bad.
On Aaron's Way.
Yeah. Yep. And then knock on wood, as far as I know, we had no storm issues or nothing the last 2 or 3 storms we've
And
had.
we've had some major ones.
No flooding, no city trees down. So, and SD1s came in, put some new storm drains in over the last 3 weeks. That's helped a lot too.
Right.
But other than that, anybody got any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Chief Hatfield.
Y'all received my monthly report. So know if anybody has any questions on that. Just to add, Officer Kabbalah, she's got about 4 more weeks. April 6th is when she's going to graduate, so she's on the home stretch. So maybe by next meeting, she'll be 2 days away from graduating. So we can't wait for her to get back to us and put her to work. So Sergeant Wilkie, he's a recipient this year of the 2022 Governor's Award for Impaired Driving. Each department is awarded the DUI guy of the city. Sergeant Wilkie is our recipient for 2022. So I just want to congratulate Sergeant Wilkie on a job well done with that. We're going through accreditation. That's just something we have to do through the state. It helps with Kentucky League of Cities, insurance, and things like that. We update policies. It's a lot of reviewing policies and reviewing things. It's something we have to do every 4 years to be accredited. And this is something that is coming up for us this month of March. So hopefully we'll finalize that accreditation. We get a plaque that we hang on the wall every year that we'll receive at the Kentucky Police Chiefs Conference. We'll be awarded that plaque. So it is a tedious process reviewing each policy. We have a lengthy 3 books full, 500 pages a piece. So it's pretty lengthy. I just want to commend Lieutenant Baldwin. He's really going out of his way to help me with this and get it completed. So I just want to give him kudos. And we just finished February 23rd. We finished a CLEF audit, which is basically the Department of Criminal Justice Training compliance officer comes in and they make sure that we're compliant with the peace officers' performance standards and the Kentucky Law Enforcement Program Fund, which we call CLEF, which each officer does get. So we are compliant. Let me see. We're compliant with the necessary requirements and qualifications to remain in the CLEF program. So they do it every couple years. So our turn came up at the same time as our accreditation. So we are compliant, and the purpose of the audit is to ensure that the agencies follow the POP standards and CLEF standards, so which we do, and we are compliant. So I've passed that on to Jared, and that's it. That's all that's going on with the Dayton Police Department this month. Any questions?
Thank you for your service,
All
sir.
right, thank you.
Chief Atkins.
Thank you, sir. You all have my report. A couple things to add. We did lose one to Cincinnati Fire Department. He'll start there at the end of May. We did offer, make a job offer to someone this week. He's in paramedic school now, so we think he'll be a good fit. He'll start in April. Jared, did you send out the Narcan training? So we are sponsoring with the North Kentucky Health Department and Narcan training this Saturday and at the Callahan Center in Bellevue. And if we get enough of a response, we will do a second one and we'll schedule it here. When the health department can do it was just the same time as the strategic planning session. So that's why we set it up for Bellevue. So it's for citizens. So if anybody wants to take it, there's a flyer should be on the Dayton Facebook page. Bellevue's got it out there as well. You just have to register because they can only have 40 participants. That's where they cut it off. So we'll be doing that. I received word yesterday from the Fire Commission that we got a grant for a new combi tool, which is basically a battery-powered jaws of life. Ours are about 20 years old, and I knew at some point we were going to have to replace those. So that was about a $12,000 grant that we got. So that'll save me some money down the road. You had mentioned last week that there was questions about business inspections.
Yeah.
So we hit all the businesses every year. Excuse me. We hit all the businesses every year. That's never an issue. We make it a point to go out and hit them all. What we're trying to focus on this year is the apartment buildings, and Cassie can speak, and as well as Tom and Bellevue. We have a lot of issues getting into some of these apartments, getting the owners there. We can go in them, but We like to have the owners there, like to have somebody from the property management there if there's issues that we can get addressed, because some of these issues can be life safety issues. We've had a couple properties in Bellevue that we actually had to basically shut down and have people move. So that's our main focus this year, is trying to get these properties, these apartment buildings. Businesses are pretty easy to get to. Most of them we can just walk in anytime and say, hey, we need to do our annual inspection. Never have any problems doing it. It's just the apartments is what we're really going to focus on this year. But the businesses are done. That's really all I have.
Any questions for Chief Atkins?
All right, thank you all.
Thank you for your service, sir. Mr. Fawcett, floor is yours for the city administrator's report.
I just have a few items. The good news is Duke Energy says they are delivering our light poles for our 6th Avenue bump outs later this month. So I've waited 6 months for that to really happen. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and hold my breath that actually is going to happen. So if that does indeed happen, it looks like that either later this month or definitely in April, we should be able to start construction on the bump out project, which has been delayed since last year. So that is very good news. On a sad note, some of you probably know this, but Mark Stark, who was a Dayton resident part-time, lived in Florida part-time, and also very active in the development of Manhattan Harbor, died this weekend in Florida, unexpectedly. And Mark was really the driving force behind what was kind of a fledgling development here on the river for a while to get the Manhattan Boulevard finished to the end. He brought Arlington Apartments here on. He also sold the property where the new Arlington Tapestry is being built. And, he was quite a character. I wasn't here when he appeared before city council, but I've heard stories about it. But he really had a good heart, and he was really the reason why you're seeing this development happening on the river. It would not have happened without his expertise in what he did, and finishing that road and doing the things that need to be done. So I just want to send my deepest condolences to his family, his friends, and his co-workers. And I'm hopeful. I'm meeting with his lawyer tomorrow. We were supposed to meet yesterday. Meeting was scheduled weeks ago. We had no idea this was going to happen. Obviously, he's pretty busy with some things, so he asked to meet on Wednesday. So hopefully after we meet, I'll have some further direction on how things are going to shake out from here. So just want to let you know that. That's it.
Any questions from council for city administrator?
Yeah, I do, sir. On your projects list, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th item, the Dayton Pike Sidewalk Connector
This
Phase 2.
is Mike's you're talking about?
Pardon me?
You're talking about Mike's report? Mike,
Yeah, I guess it did come from Mike, yes.
Let me
The
look at
Dayton
it.
Dayton Pike Sidewalk Connector, the Phase 2. One of the things you mentioned there in the notes is that SD1 is not going to take ownership of the storm system.
That's
We
right.
ran into this issue a couple of years ago with the property owners on Dayton Pike and the fact that it's a private storm drain.
And it's in really bad shape too. We had it videoed. It's not in good shape.
And I don't think all those property owners are fully aware of that. And I do have concerns, especially between Chateau Ridge to the south of there where the curve is. There's a private property that comes down, and there's a lot of fallen wood that's going to clog that culvert even more. Could the city send each of those property owners all the way up to Lincoln Road a letter in conjunction with SD1 explaining the situation, that was installed without any code and it's their responsibility for the storm drain?
And the private developer apparently installed that when those buildings were built back, whenever that was. And it was never a city stormwater drain. And therefore, when the SD1 took it over, they did not take over that drain because it was private. So we can send a letter if you'd like. I mean, I think there are 3 or 4 property owners in particular that have issues because of that. I think the ones higher on the hill don't have as major issues, but yeah, it needs to be addressed. I pleaded with SD1 to help us, but they say it's private. We won't do it. Now they would do a cost sharing deal with us and the private property owner and them, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, but it's a very expensive project. So,
Well, especially if the water company's going to be working on Dayton Pike and we're talking about putting extending
Right.
the sidewalk all the way up. As a property owner there, I'd have that question too.
Right.
Why don't, how come we
so
don't-
I've talked to Mike about this. We're hoping that in the process of doing the sidewalk project, we'll be able to address some of the stormwater issues coming down Dayton Pike and have our own storm system along the road that will dump into the drainage areas. And that will probably alleviate some of the problems, but they've got that hillside behind them that brings a lot of stormwater down as well. So it won't solve their problems, but it may alleviate some of their problems. But the biggest problem is that's old clay pipe and it's just deteriorating. It's been there a long time and it needs to be replaced. But it's an expensive project and it's hard to do it because some can afford to do it, some can't. It's the same issue we have in Grant Park. Some people are willing to put up the money to fix the issue, others aren't. And that's always the problem you got with these private situations.
And just to inform the property owners in conjunction with SD1 what the actual situation is legally, so that we don't have 10 people come down here after a flood not knowing the facts.
I think they know because Rick just talked with the one who bought the house down there and where the collapse was a year ago or so. And we informed him that it was private. And he says, I know, I've been online, I checked, I saw it. So I think they don't know, they're learning that it is, but it's not a bad idea to inform them. And I'll tell them the city tried to work with SD1, see if they would do it. If they say they can't do it since it's private, I'll be happy to put a letter together for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neary. Any other questions for Mr. Fawcett? All right. Now the time for the evening will be for anybody from the audience who would like to approach City Council and administration. The podium is yours. Just please state your name and address.
Becky Mays, 501 6th Avenue, Dayton, Kentucky. When I come across this about the drinking ordinance, I also come across, I did my research on alcohol. We banned smoking because smoking causes cancer. Alcohol causes cancer. I've done my research. I made sure every one of you's got one of these pallets in your mailbox to do your research. I'm not kidding about this. I'm dealing with this. And I need it used to take seriously. Alcohol causes cancer just as well as smoking. But none of you bother to, it's okay. It's okay. I hope none of you's ever had to deal with cancer.
Thank you, Ms. Mason. State your name and address, sir.
Brett Newspickle, 701 Urban Terrace. So I emailed you all last month, and first of all, I'll just say I'm a little bit disappointed nobody responded other than Jess calling. But while I'm dealing with this issue at the house, I guess my further concern is that I don't really want to see anybody else in Dayton, Kentucky, as a citizen of Dayton, ever have to deal with something what I'm dealing with. So with the help of Joey Tucker, I've kind of traced some things back and did some research. That house was flipped back in around 2012. And it's pretty obvious now that whoever came in and did that was doing a lot of cheap cut arounds, but more so it was blatant to go against code that somehow got passed. So my question is how in the world does it get passed by code? And it has to be at a level outside of our community. So maybe you all should consider an ordinance to kind of prevent things like this from happening. So just to put it on record, what they discovered was instead of putting pipe in parts of the house, they put duct that's used for air. That has been going through the system like a pipe for so long, and now it's rusted out and created a hole. So they have been dealing with this process. They've been trying to find answers. I've had a restoration contractor in there. I've had a plumbing contractor in there, Schneller, and the other one is, I'm sorry, I forget their name, but they're out in Florence. It's a mystery. It's just a mystery, and it's frustrating because I am a citizen that wanted to invest make my property better, be here in Dayton. And now the most recent turn of events after yesterday is I'm just ready to sell. They thought they had the answer. They got in there, found more problems. Instead of going up into the house, they went the other direction. So they went into the drains. And now they've come to find out after, going through there, they thought at first there was a collapsed pipe or something that had been in there, and tried to run, I can't think of the equipment, but they tried to run it through. All it did was pull out mud. So it told them it wasn't getting through. So then they went jackhammered through there where they were supposed to find a pipe about a foot down. They went 4 foot down, no pipe. And they said the mystery about it is that even if it was a destroyed or, deteriorated pipe or whatever, there would still be fragments and parts. They have basically just given up. So they had me contact SD1. SD1 can only help from outside the house. They try to give me some ideas as to what it could be or possibly be, but it's still just a mystery. I'm reaching out now to try to find maybe plumbers that specialize in sewers and drains. But honestly, after everything that's happened over these last month with this thing and some previous issues, which I mentioned in that email, if you read it, I'm just done. I mean, I think the writing's on the wall that me and my family are going to be out of Dayton. And it's just because, and I'm not blaming any of you all, but I do think you should take this into consideration that this never happens to anybody again. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I would definitely suggest some kind of a protection ordinance, like maybe, you have your own inspector go out and look at these. I mean, I hear you up here talking about these flippers and all that stuff, and I'm sure it's not everybody, but this one, by all record, was pretty blatant about what they did. So
Brett, did you have an inspection?
we did. But like I said, as I mentioned in the email, part of it does fall back on them. But this most recent thing, the plumber himself even said they went even through measures to even try to hide it. I mean, where it goes into the flange, they had a rock planted up in front of there and wrapped around. So because the restoration guy was coming in to cut into the wall, and, it just all makes a lot of sense that they were just blatant about it and trying to hide it.
Could you go over it again when you said that at least parts of the pipe should still be there, but there's nothing?
So when they went in and jackhammered yesterday, they were looking for the pipe. They thought that maybe it was a pipe that was collapsed or crushed or something. But they went as far as 4 feet down and they found no pipe. And they were saying that it's just a mystery because if there was even a damaged pipe or pipe that deteriorated away, they would find fragments of it.
This is a sewer pipe you're talking about?
This is a draining out of the basement, yes.
Okay.
So the thing is their question is because I told them, I said, I just swept water down there yesterday before they got there. So where's it going? And they just have no idea. I mean, it's going somewhere, but who knows where. So like I said, when I called SD1, they were trying to tell me they came down and they told me what they could do, and they're supposed to get back with me on that, but they won't be able to come inside the house. So, I mean, it's honestly just to the point. I spoke with my dad last night about it since we're the ones invested in it. And I mean, I think it's just at the point that you have to give up. I mean, it's a shame. I mean, it was my first home owning and all that, but like I said, I just don't want it to be on anybody else.
Thank you, Mr. Newspickle.
So is that something we would do? Like a post-flip inspection?
I mean, the problem is, I wonder if they did this on their own, and they're required to get building permits to do major construction and go through the county to do that. We don't do any inspections. The only inspections we do in code enforcement are exterior inspections. We don't do wiring, plumbing.
Right.
That's all done through the county, and the county inspectors that specialized.
Right.
And so we contract with the county to do that work. The
Correct.
problem I've experienced in my past job in Covington is you have people that do these jobs on their own.
Yes.
They don't get the permits, they don't get permission, and they just do a horrible job, and the later owners have to suffer because of it.
Right.
What are you going to say?
And we keep our eye out for these type of people. Sometimes they're kind of hard. They're under the radar, but anytime police, fire, anybody that's out in the city sees any kind of business, they'll typically call me. I'll run out, make sure they have their occupational, make sure they have their permits. We started something new with the county because a lot of people were going to the county and getting a permit and then they weren't coming to us. So we have no idea kind of what's going on. So we're working now with the county. They will create the permit and then they'll either wait until they have their occupational with us so that we also know they're doing business in the city, or they send them to us to get the occupational. So there are a lot of people that do business that we just don't know about. They
Right.
don't get permits. They don't do it the legal way. So anytime anybody's out in the city and you see a truck or something, give me a call and we'll make sure that
Cassie's a one-person show, and it's a big city, and she does
Yeah.
best she can, but we need help. If you see people working in a house,
Right.
it doesn't look like it's right, let us know, and we'll be there.
But yeah, all the permits are done through the county, so they come out and they do the inspection after the work is completed. So
So all this work that probably had no permit, or else this stuff would have been caught in an inspection.
I would expect, I mean, it sounds like to me that if they got a permit, that this would not have been approved, but I don't know, it could have been done 25 years ago. Who knows how long ago it was done, 50 years ago.
I know we talked about once, I think maybe it was the profit from city acquired property, like we just bought this thing that, you could take control of the hill and have city loans for people who got hit with stuff like this.
City loans.
We talked about that a long time
Yeah,
ago.
we actually talked to the Housing Authority about creating that loan program, and they had a change in leadership, and that kind of has gone by the wayside, but we had talked about putting together, but it was going to be based on income, and you'd have to be, at a certain income level. So if you're an investor, you're probably not going to satisfy it, but if you are a low to moderate income person.
Someone like Brett or the woman across the street from him that needed the porch or whatever, I think maybe in the last year or so, personally, we have been hit with an insane amount of things. And I really think that, am I too quiet? I think that, I don't know, not everybody can take these hits. I mean, it's
Right.
like we had a porch, that was $5,000. I can't remember all this stuff, but the kicker was another sewer situation that we had on our building that is absolutely insane. And we had SD1 come out, and we have a 10-inch pipe, which is like a sewer for a city coming out of there. I don't know, So anyway, one thing after another, that was $25,000.
Right.
So who, there's only so many of these punches we're going to be able to take too. It's just, it seems I don't know what we could do to,
Yeah, I mean,
to help
we
or-
would be, we were talking about doing $50,000. That would scratch the surface. I mean, that wouldn't go very
Yeah.
far. We were trying to
for
leverage it
some-
with the housing authority to make it 100,000, but, we were going to limit it to $5,000 because trying to spread it out. So, you got a sewer project like that.
that was insane and hidden, totally hidden. I mean, it took a big crew and a backhoe and they had to go down, I think 10 feet. It was insane. But anyway,
Right.
there's a woman across the street from Brett and she got ripped off or something and she didn't have it. And they took her $5,000 and ran, and she had no porch, and it's an eyesore, and and just, she couldn't come up with another $5,000. I don't know. So I was wondering,
It happens all the time.
if in the future we could think of, that would. for
Problem is
$5,000
finding the
be-
money to do it. I mean,
Mhm.
Covington, we had it, but we had federal money that came in to do that. We'd have to take it out of our general fund, and we have to decide what our resources are and whether we have the resources to do something like that. There's
Mhm.
also talk about doing sidewalk improvements for people and doing, alley parking spots. So there's a lot of ideas, but there's only a certain amount of
Yeah, it's-
resources to do it.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
Because I think as people with limited income, and then something like that could run them out of their house, and then where are they going? It's
tough.
Yeah.
Well, to Brett's point, the council should do something. I don't think we can. I think the laws are already in place. The zoning ordinances are already in place. We've boosted code enforcement to bust these fly-by-night construction. I don't think there's anything council can do above and beyond what is already on the books. If people aren't following the rules, we can only make up so many rules if they're not following them. The home inspection, I know that home inspections are not always 100% correct because they're only there for a few hours versus a few years. But I can't think of anything the council or administration could do in excess of what's already in place. That's the responsibility of the city and the county.
We
Am I
encounter,
wrong?
we encounter it all the time. Cassie and I just had a situation with the code enforcement, an elderly woman whose windows are boarded up. She's living in this house and her backyard is a jungle. She can't afford to do it. She can't physically do it. So we've been talking about maybe we just get a weekend and get someone else to go down there and help her out. It's sad, but it happens all the time.
Would that be, I mean, that would
Yeah.
be cool.
I mean, almost.
I would do it. you
Okay,
know.
well, we're talking about doing it when,
Yeah,
when the weather breaks to maybe go help her out.
Yeah.
But that's one house and we've got
Yeah.
many like that.
Mhm.
Lateral lines, Jay, SD1, they just got an insurance policy where they would actually come in and work with you on a lateral line.
I don't know if they'll do anything in the house. I mean, they,
Part of you, I think you could buy the insurance from in the house out to the street.
I don't know about that.
Because SD1 is responsible for
Hey, Rick, come up here. Someone can hear you. We're going
Yeah.
to get you the microphone. I can't hear you either, but I can't hear anybody.
Yeah, I thought they used to have an insurance policy that each homeowner could take out, and it would cover from your foundation out to the curb, then SD1 takes care of the rest. They may still have a program.
You can get the
Right.
insurance, but I'm assuming it's a little too late.
You have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've used it because I think my tree roots got in the way of my, foundation, and all of a sudden water is just spewing out in my front yard. And this has been about 5 years ago, but I think my insurance that I paid like maybe $50. I still have it, and even though I've used it, I couldn't need it again. I think I paid $50 in the spring and $40 in the fall, and they covered up to $1,500 worth of the repair, which really took care of it. And I had to repair the sidewalk on top of it out of my pocket, but it really saved me $1,500. So I still sign up every year for it. And I think Ken Rankel put me onto it. Jeff, I don't know if you were on that or not, but I get something now from another company which I don't use. So I know it's available.
They have that program, and they also have another program that it's a system that closes the drains off during flooding.
It doesn't, it's a back.
It's a backup system
right.
that stops the flooding.
Coming back in here.
And actually, that is free.
Backflow.
Up to $10,000, the backflow in the basements. So if you have flooding in your basement and you can document it, you can call SD1 and they'll come and look at the situation and they'll put a backflow in to stop that free, up to $10,000. So they do have that program as well.
Mr. Newspick, I really appreciate you bringing your concerns again to council, and hope you know I've always appreciated as a neighbor. You've been active in the community and hate to see you leave. I wish the best for you, man. I understand. The podium is still open for anybody who'd like to address council and administration. Please state your name and address, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor, City Council members. Thank you very much for giving us a chance to speak here tonight. My name is Andrew Herbst. Our business is located at 631 6th Avenue. I just want to just briefly state how happy we are to be coming into the city of Dayton. I think it's a beautiful town that has a really beautiful future. When we found this business model that we're going with, we had a dream of doing the historical branding of kind of old Newport's themed, kind of like the Syndicate and the dueling piano bar. And when we got, when Newport kind of drug their feet on us and we were embraced by the city of Dayton. It's out of nostalgia for our original business model. We had thought about, keeping the name the same, Old Newport Social Club. But when we got down here and we got to talking to locals and eating dinner at Hometown Heroes and doing more research about the history of Dayton and really the future of Dayton, we decided that no, we want to theme our business specifically on Dayton. And that's why we are going with the name, the Manhattan Club, for our business. And so,
Can you explain a little bit to the council what your business is? I don't know. I'm not sure they know what it is.
Absolutely. So in the state of Kentucky, there are poker clubs that operate within the law based on the fact that there is no wagering against the actual business. We're a private club. The members are charged a fixed hourly rate for their use of the equipment, but there's never any what they would call raking the pot, so to speak, which is what keeps it legal or within Kentucky law. So it's a private social club that allows patrons to play specifically Texas Hold'em and Omaha, which are the two games that we'll offer. We won't be selling alcohol or food or anything like that. We'll just have a real specific customer base. We're looking, to kind of cater to more upscale type of customer base, college age guys or, guys who have had kind of more private, groups of poker players for years. We're looking to provide like a clean, classy atmosphere. We are still going with some of the kind of older aesthetic, dress clothes, black and white photos and stuff like that. But we're just, our goal is to make a safe and diverse and inclusive environment for everybody and to add a classy establishment to this wonderful city. And so thank you very much. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that anybody might have.
So,
Is this open to everyone, male and female?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They just have to become a member.
What are the requirements to be a member?
21 years of age. That's about it.
So you don't sell food, you don't sell alcohol. You book an hour to come and
Yes, ma'am.
bet? I mean, what,
Are they groups? People
like I'm
come
not
in
seeing
groups?
the fun.
Sure. So people come in and play poker amongst themselves. We would be charging a fixed hourly rate for a seat at the table. The wagering is between the patrons, never between us and the patrons on any level.
So I've seen, when you came to the city, we did some research. We saw there's one in Bowling Green, I think, one in Paducah, or Moneymaker has one somewhere.
Yes, sir. Chris Moneymaker is like a famous ESPN personality that kind of, I guess, jump-started the growth of these type of businesses in the state of Kentucky. His are in Bowling Green and Paducah. The one that we did a soft franchise with is in London, Kentucky. It's called the Royal Social Club, and we paid them several $1,000s for access to their legal opinions and the intellectual property and stuff like that. So that the one in London would be the one that we would be the most closely modeled after, I would say.
And isn't gambling that's prohibited under Kentucky law. So as long as you're not taking a share of the pot, then it's illegal in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's right. The legality is established on a twofold argument. One, what you just said, that, never at any time are they going to be wagering against us. And two, poker has been established as a game of skill in the state of Kentucky, which is legal under Kentucky state law. So we would say that our legality is twofold. The fact that we don't rake the pot and the fact that poker has been established as a skill game.
So you don't sell food, but will you allow food in there? Like if our restaurants wanted to cater or anything like that?
Yeah, so we're gonna really make an effort to promote local businesses. I've kind of already established a relationship with Unitaza and Hometown Heroes. And so we're going to have a little table kind of front and center where people can order their food from local Dayton businesses. And we'll just pretty much exclusively promote Dayton businesses. I mean, maybe we'll have some stuff for like Fessler's in Bellevue or something, but we'll really try to focus on keeping it in Dayton, so to speak.
And the patrons themselves create the betting limits for their own game?
Yes.
I'm confused.
Yes, yeah. So we just charge a fixed hourly rate of $15 an hour. They're free to establish the limits of the games on their own. Yes, sir.
Like, do you have a following? Like, you're going to open, I don't know, let's say I want to join. Do you have a certain time? Like, if you don't have a following, you don't sell food, I'm just going to show up and talk to myself. Like, I'm just confused on how this works. Like,
Yes, ma'am. So we have been working on. Oh,
I'm sorry. We're business partners. The marketing side's a little bit more my field. So my name is Jordan Deerdorf. I actually live in Ludlow. Do you need my address?
Sure.
It's 421 Hazen Street, Ludlow. As far as like the following goes, we're using different marketing strategies, and we have a software that I'm working on having developed that'll allow players to essentially like book time slots. So you can see when other people are going to be there and book a time slot. But you could also, most people that would be interested probably already play in houses. We've talked to people in Dayton as well as like Newport, Florence, Alexandria. My brother's a big poker player and he hangs out at the Manhattan Harbor a lot. A lot of the guys hang out there and then they'll go to somebody's house to play. So essentially like instead of them playing at a house where wives and kids are being disturbed by them playing, right? They're going to be in our establishment having a good time amongst themselves, generating tax revenue, benefiting local businesses by buying food, drinks, and that's kind of the thing.
Like, do you provide the dealer? Like,
yeah.
Like, if you're trying to sell me, like, what's
the selling point for the individual who likes to play would be that there's a neutral party that's dealing the cards. So if Tom had 3 drinks, he's not messing up the game, and he's also not dealing for his own interest. There's cameras to ensure the security of everyone and make sure that like the person who is dealing or the people that are playing are following specific rules. The cards, for example, are not just Walmart cards that anybody could buy and have in their sleeve. They're all branded. They use a UV layer to them so that you can ensure there's a fair game. The chips are regulated. So
you just get paid an hourly. So
yeah,
you're like, no matter how big the pot is, who
it
wins,
makes no
there's
difference
not
to
a
us.
percentage.
Now, if we're hosting a tournament, there's a specific buy-in and a specific winning, but we have no stake in the game. And if 10 guys decide that they want to sit down and have a mutual game together, what they want to put on it amongst themselves, just as if they were playing in the house next door, that's up to them. We're just making sure that they have a safe place to play, that they know there's a neutral party hosting the game. And so it's all about, a lot of it's like the aesthetic. Like we have certain like murals that are dedicated to like local aspects in Northern Kentucky. We have a really big one of like Mama Street, but we're also putting up some of like the Dayton flood and like early Dayton immigration. So a lot of it's like the aesthetic and like having somewhere where you can go that's kind of cultural. It's not necessarily just about like, oh, well, you're playing a game you could do anywhere. It's a lot about like the security as well as like just a social place that people can participate together instead of like just.
So then you're expecting a large following or an expensive following. I mean,
yeah, I'd
if
say
you
it's
come
a
to my
little in
house and we're
between.
playing poker, it's probably $50 to $100. Like,
Yeah, it's a little bit
we
in
don't really
between.
need security.
Like,
So you're looking at like larger dollars.
I guess it's relative to the person as far as like how much money somebody like would consider a large amount. I would say that most people that come and play aren't going to come with $50 because they would spend that in a few hours just sitting there. So the people that come are going to they would be more likely to be people who already go to the casino and spend a lot of money, or would like to go to the casino and spend a lot of money, but don't want to do it in Ohio. They don't feel safe being in downtown Ohio, or they would rather not have to deal with that kind of, or it's just closer. I mean, like my brother, like I said, he lives in Alexandria, Kentucky, out past the high school. Does he want to go all the way to Cincinnati to play? Do his friends all want to go all the way to Cincinnati to play? Most of the time, not necessarily. So we're kind of like a halfway point.
What is your opening date?
It's still to be determined to some extent. Our tables are being custom made. We're waiting on software development. So we were hoping for May, but it may be like June.
All right.
So I mean,
Well, thanks for investing in Dayton.
Thank you
I
very
appreciate
much.
you.
Thank
Any
you
other
very
questions for these gentlemen? Or any questions for us?
Oh, and if you could let us know any local charities that we could work into our like, budget to annually or kind of monthly donate to. We want to help out with anything that we can donate to that would help the city. Anything personally that we can personally give our time to, like when you were saying that, volunteering to help with that lady's backyard or anything that we could potentially, Jordan and I, to help to make a good impression on the community. We would absolutely love an opportunity to do something like that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
The podium is still open for anybody from the audience who'd like to address council or administration. We will be closing that now. Next on the agenda, unfinished business. Does any council have any unfinished business they want to speak with to administration?
Yes. I need to check something real quick. I don't know what you call this. Wait. Hold on, I'm sorry.
What?
Does that fit? Okay, I got a letter from a resident or an email, and she wanted me to suggest that when we put the bump outs out in New Orleans, they put tiles. What?
Sorry about that. Done.
Okay. They put tiles in the sidewalk, the name of the street. New Orleans. Okay. So I sent, okay, he's got it if you want to put it on the screen, but I don't, and to see what they look like. So each street will have, and since we're putting the bump outs in anyway, could we take an opportunity to add some kind of artistic aesthetic like that?
It's like you see like
I mean-
New Orleans.
Yeah.
Okay.
I sent 3 pictures to Jared, but I don't know how hard it is to.
Aren't
Put
the
it-
bump outs already paid for? And if we was to add more, would that delay the process?
I mean, have to be
I
done.
mean, because there's already a design that was originally
So the
approved.
grant, it would probably be a change order. We'd have to see,
They're tiles.
yeah, what are the costs? What's the cost of it? And then 2, what would be the cost to install it? That they're going to charge us probably a change order to do it because it's not in the grant amount that was approved. So I don't know, we did find out what the cost is.
Well, at the Main Street meeting last week, Jared, you talked about some of the, with the bump out project, that we were going to put trash cans there, we were going to have planters there. They're going to be dressed up a little bit. Something like a tile like that doesn't have to be in the concrete. We can put a tile later on top.
But isn't it supposed to be where the streets are?
Look. See? See street?
Well, that's more in the street.
Yeah,
than-
it's like Canal Street, Urban.
Right.
Oh, okay. Can you send it to me? I'll put it on.
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, as long as we can do it and it doesn't break the budget.
And doesn't delay the project any further.
No, we can't have that at all. All right.
Put a vinyl sticker, polyacrylic.
I sent it to Jared.
We've been working on it.
I just sent it to you, Jay.
Okay. It's not showing up there. So it's hard to see. It's going to clear out here in a second.
That's a great image you got.
We'll
Jeff.
go wait a second.
All right, so Bourbon Street.
So that's
There's
actually
a
in the
bunch of them.
street, that's in the street with bricks around it, okay. It's not on the sidewalk, I thought they were on the sidewalk when I was here, but it's on the streets, like if you cross the crosswalk, it'd be right there. Is that what you're, like that would be McKinney or Vine, whatever the case
Yeah.
may be, the
Can you
crosswalk.
see the other ones? So they're
kind of
like in place in the street.
Please talk into your microphones.
That was pop up.
There it is.
That's better? You see
Yeah.
that? So those are actually on the sidewalk, not the street, so these are on the sidewalk.
Somehow incorporating that. While we have a chance to be cool. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you want to put anything on Sixth Avenue, Jay, because you talk about a delay, that'll be a big delay.
Yeah, right, I think they're, I've been.
Put 'em on the-
They're always on the sidewalk.
Yeah, you put it on the sidewalk. We don't have to ask anybody's permission, just our own.
Right, but on Sixth Avenue, you'll be dealing with KYTC again.
Yeah, yeah.
Their
You get to
comment.
The sidewalks, do not want to touch the street, right? There might be one more, but. So, we know
That's going on.
who manufactures those or maybe information? on
We
it?
could talk about it later. I just wanted to bring it up that
Okay.
maybe if there's an opportunity to create something cool while you're doing this work, take the chance to do it now.
We could always get the dimensions and let's put pavers in there until, and then replace it at a later date. I'm sure it's just some sort of mastic glued down. We'll have to look into it, see
Okay.
how they do it.
Thank you.
I think it's cool. Any further unfinished business?
In the spirit of Charlie Tharp, March 9th, 2 days from now, is a very special day for the city of Dayton. Jamestown was founded in 1848. Brooklyn was founded in 1849. They wanted to merge, but the Civil War got in the way. Dayton was established and approved by the governor, and the first city council meeting of the city of Dayton was on March 9th, 1867. So happy 156th birthday, Dayton.
Happy birthday.
That's all I have, sir.
I appreciate it.
Trying to cut this short.
2 hours, 11 minutes according to my glorious clock in the back.
Yeah.
Any other unfinished business for council? All right, we'll go ahead and close that. Is there a reason for executive session, Ms. Boehny?
New business.
Oh, that's not on my list.
No.
Come on, I'm like Ron Burgundy. I'm just going to read what's here.
New business.
Is there any new business, council?
I just wanted to ask a question to Cassie. We are on top of all the delivery companies that come into town for occupational, like Amazon, UPS, FedEx, Kroger's, Instacart, all those people that are here every day.
That would be an Angie question.
Well, just check that for us, Angie, will you?
I think that's a Jared question.
Okay. Because let me tell you, they're just coming in and out of the complex up there like multiple times a day using our streets.
Blocking our streets.
I've seen it before where they will have like a flat rate or something that they would pay the city because there's no really way for them to track how long they're here and whatnot. But I'll check in to see what contracts we have with them.
Yeah, it might be a revenue stream we're missing out on, that's all.
Trust me, my Amazon bill will probably pay it.
That's
I get
all.
a package every single day,
Thanks for filling those potholes, Ms. Lovins.
every day.
Any other new business? All right, we have a reason for executive session, Ms. Bainey? Yes, we do. On the agenda, we have an executive session pursuant to KRS 618101 Bravo, discussions of proposed or pending legislation against or on our behalf the city and KRS 618101 Foxtrot. We're going to drop Foxtrot.
So we need a motion to go into executive.
Discussions that might
I'll make
lead to
that
the
motion.
appointment, discipline, or dismissal of an employee. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Member Neers made the movement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Neiman. I'm going to take a 5-minute, all in favor?
Aye.
We have a 5-minute recess for anyone who may need to use the facilities.